Hey guys, I'm Hannah Cox with Base Politics, back again with our weekly show, COPAGANDA. This week, we're returning to another case that's a few years old, but I want to circle back to it because it has finally been resolved in the courts, and I think it's a really interesting episode. What you need to know is this. On July 9th, 2020, Nicole Harper was traveling southbound on U.S. Highway 67 in Arkansas. Officer Rodney Dunn allegedly clocked Harper driving 84 miles per hour in a 70 mile per hour zone. Terrifying, right? You're not going to believe what he did next. Let's watch.
The inside wall. They rolled over, get me EMS started. Got the number 3 lane shut down.
You get out. Come on out.
Can you get out? Come on out. Come out this way right here. Come out this way. Can you come out? Yeah, hold on a minute. Can you get out your passenger door?
This is traumatizing for me to watch for so many reasons. First and foremost, I have a cousin that was killed in a car wreck where her car flipped over. It is just, I cannot fathom a cop doing this to somebody, especially for an incident that merely involved speeding. I mean, yes, she was going, according to him, which she combated this later on, 14 miles over the speed limit. A little bit much, but again, she was driving 84 miles per hour. We have arbitrarily low speed limits in this country because it is a money grab for state governments, local police. It really is not based on safety, hardly ever. Now, he's using what is called a pit mover, where basically he takes his car, uses it as a weapon to bump into the driver's car in order to tailspin it and make it flip. This is an intentional maneuver. And to be clear, the officer did this after 2 minutes and 7 seconds. He put his lights on. She immediately slowed down. She has her hazards on. She's pretty obviously looking for a place to stop. That is typically well within your rights as a driver. The laws differ somewhat state to state, but across the board, the ACLU tells you that as a driver, the first thing you should do is slow down and try to find a safe place to stop, a safe place for you and a safe place for the officer. Now, Harper, when she was asked about this later on, pointed out that when the officer first put his lights on, she was in an area where there were concrete barriers on every side of the road. So she didn't think she had enough room to actually pull all the way off with her SUV, much less leave enough room for the officer to get out in traffic and come to her window. So she was looking for an exit. And there also is a sign right before she slipped that shows an exit is about a mile away. So he should have just followed her to an exit and let her exit safely. Clearly, she was not trying to run away from him. There was no reason to think this was some kind of a violent criminal. The whole interaction began because she was speeding. And you can tell just by this officer's demeanor when he approaches the car after he flips it and almost kills her, that he's not afraid of her. He's approaching the car saying, "Can you get out? Are you alone? Come on out now." He doesn't have his gun drawn. He doesn't fear for his life. He just flippantly did this because he, I think, just wanted to execute a cool maneuver he learned in police school and saw an excuse to do so. Now, you hear Harper say that not only has he done this to her, ruined her car, risked her life, but she actually is 2 months pregnant at the time that this happens. She could have lost her child. Fortunately, she did not in this incident. But according to the Washington Post, over 30 people have been killed with these kinds of maneuvers since 2016. They reported that in 2021. The numbers could have gone up since then. And 16 of those, the incidents occurred because police first encountered them over minor things like speeding or other traffic violations. So they're seeing these minor infractions that arguably maybe even shouldn't be against the law at times. And they are then employing deadly force against everyday Americans for things like not finding an exit to pull over on in time. Now, as a woman, I've always been taught that if you're getting pulled over, especially late at night, that actually what you should do is go to an exit, get into a public place, because there are so many people throughout time who have tried to impersonate police officers, who have harmed women in these kinds of interactions. And there's also incidents throughout history of police at times themselves using these kinds of interactions to take advantage of women and even sexually abuse them. So yes, I think you are well within your purview to find a safe place to pull over. The officer should be very cognizant of that and actually be thankful that you're looking out for their safety as well, because it is not always a very safe environment to get out of your car on the side of a busy interstate. But instead of taking any of this into account, he loses his cool, flips out, and flips this woman's car in under 3 minutes. It's inexcusable. Anyways, so after this whole ordeal concludes, Harper ends up suing the police department, and that's why this has been wrapped up in court for a couple years now. But it seems the parties have finally come to a settlement. We don't have the full terms. Honestly, that's pretty common. A lot of the times these things are done behind closed doors. What you should know is that if she was paid money, and I'm going to bet that she was because this was ridiculous, that the cop didn't have to pay for that. Probably the police department didn't even have to pay for it. The city did, meaning you did. On top of that, this officer faces no charges or any accountability whatsoever for his reckless endangerment at best in this situation. If you did this as a citizen, you would go to jail. He, however, keeps his job. In fact, it's reported that he is a 27-year veteran of the agency, and he remains an active trooper in the Highway Patrol Division to this day. Now, as part of the settlement, what we do know is that the department had to make some changes, and guys, they're groundbreaking. Just wait for it. They say as part of the settlement agreement, the department has agreed to change its use of force policy as it relates to the pit maneuver and institute an objective standard required to justify the maneuver's use versus the previous subjective standard. So basically now, in order to flip somebody's car and risk their lives, you have to have some reason to think that they have committed a crime or a danger. That should have been common sense. That should be the bare minimum. And yet that's what we get as an end result of all of this. If you're mad about these kinds of cases, you have public policies and legal decisions mostly to thank for them. Qualified immunity, which is a legal precedent made up by the Supreme Court in the 1960s, essentially says that police officers, and also pretty much anybody who works for the government, is immune from liability. You also have a culture of policing that sends them out to be road pirates and shake Americans down for traffic violations, speeding, mostly just to get money, instead of having them go solve violent crimes. It's one reason we have a less than average 60% of homicides that even get cleared in this country every year. And the solvency rates get even worse for that as you move to other violent crimes. In fact, police spend very little time and resources solving or preventing violent crime in this country, and instead devote their attention to things like this that put you in more danger and also put police in danger. And so laws need to be changed to ensure that when police are employed and they're getting our resources, they're actually being directed to use their time and energy on things that actually make society safer versus creating interactions that put everybody in more danger. All right, guys, that's a wrap for this week. Let me know your thoughts on this case and be sure to subscribe to my channel. And until next week, stay based.